Hey everybody. As we inch closer to the release of Heart of Thorns, a lot of players are wondering what the endgame PvE content is going to look like. ANET has been extremely tight-lipped about it, and the most they have said is that we will have quote-unquote challenging group content, and they have shown that there is a Fractal Mastery trackline, so we can expect some revamp or expansion of Fractals. While admittedly, this is not a lot of information to go on, I think I can still make some educated guesses about what we can expect. So what follows is my best guess about what we're going to see and a little bit of wishlisting. I'm going to do my best to stay realistic, but also speculate on the features that would be big crowd pleasers, and I might be suggesting a few things that are probably asking too much. But without further delay, let's get into it, and we'll start off with the most obvious place that they're going to add endgame content, the open world. So, the devs have specifically said that the Wyvern fight is not what they're talking about when they say challenging group content. However, it would probably be really foolish to think that the open world won't have any. At the very least, I would expect at least one new world boss encounter on the difficulty and scale of the Triple Worm. As ANET has shown with the Triple Worm, they're not afraid to let players fail in open world content. And I hope and I expect that whatever world boss they create takes days or even weeks for the first kill. These bosses are great for the game since they challenge players at the organizational level. When Tequatl was revamped, it created a whole community in TTS and all the similar guilds. And when Triple Worm was created, it created the Attuned Guild. So these encounters literally created communities around them. We should remember, though, that these bosses are significantly harder as organizational challenges than they are as individual player skill challenges. These cannot and hopefully will not be the beginning and end of challenging group content. Thanks to data mining, we know that there will be at least 3 new zones or maps or whatever in the X-Pack. It wouldn't be out of the question to have one such epic boss in each zone. The first could be at Tequatl level, the second could be at the Worm level, and the last could be at a difficulty that is beyond even the Triple Worm. Obviously, they should be on timers, and they should be spaced out so they aren't competing with each other, and so that each zone gets substantial player traffic, even months or years later when the event comes up. Lastly, I would say that the rewards for them should be something a bit better than the Worm, and probably even be a bit better than Tequatl. If players spend days or weeks killing one of these bosses, the rewards should be a bit more than a few greens, some karma, and a 1 in 150 chance at a unique armor skin. Roughly speaking, it appears the economy in the game is built with the idea that a moderately active player can earn about 10 gold per hour of gameplay. I would suggest that whatever rewards they implement be based around the concept of being worth a good deal more than that for your time. But that's just my opinion. So we'll see what ANET does with the open world, but that's what I'm thinking it's going to look like. Alright, so now let's talk about Fractals of the Mist. There's a lot of speculation about what each of the fractal masteries represent and what the point is. At the most simple level, I think we can expect the level cap to go up, perhaps to 80, and perhaps even beyond. Whether there'll be Mistlock instabilities at the higher level or just agony and mob scaling is kind of hard to tell. The instabilities were a cool idea, but I think we can agree that as they were implemented, they were more or less ignored. Other than the initial progression, most people only do the easiest ones on a daily basis and ignore the ones that are soul-crushingly hard. Simple hit point and damage scaling for mobs is pretty boring and rudimentary, but it does at least up the challenge level a good deal. I don't think they will do just simple scaling because that's fairly unexciting, and the masteries that they put into the expansion have to actually do something. If I had to guess, I would imagine that they'll have something like instabilities and keep the agony scaling. The masteries will probably do 3 things: give you some sort of resistance to the instabilities, give you account-wide agony resistance, and increase your chances of getting special rewards from fractals, basically like function the way Magic Find is for drops, but applied to the fractal daily chest, and hopefully powerful enough to be noticeable. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that's fractal rewards. One of the more maligned things in the game. What sort of rewards would we expect from above level 50? For starters, ANET should remove rings entirely from the drop table at that level. There's really no need for someone whose fractal level is 51 or more to need more rings. ANET has already said that fractal skin weapon boxes drop at 51 plus. That is a very, very much needed change. Allowing players to pick the skin that they want will go a long way towards making the rewards worth the time investment. While a lot of tears were shed over fractal weapon boxes not being in the Fractured update after they were data mined, a lot of people forgot that in the same patch, there were 2 other drops data mined that never saw the game. Ascended Weapon Chest and Ascended Armor Chest. These drops allowed you to pick any weapon or armor with any stat you wanted. Since most people in Fractals want Zoja's boxes and consider anything else as a trash drop, or they get 4 Raiders armor boxes, but they're all shoulder pieces. Essentially, the new boxes would eliminate that bad RNG and give people the exact reward they want. Since we are hopefully going to be doing much higher level Fractals, the drop rate of these 3 types of boxes should probably be significantly better than what we see for skins and Ascended gear at level 50. But I should say, this can't be it. It will not take long before every dedicated Fractal runner has every weapon skin unlocked. Many already do. Plus, some people already have Ascended gear for most of their characters and don't really have a huge need for any more. Besides increasing the gold drop at the end of Fractals, which is something they should do anyway, what else can ANET add that would add massive replayability? My suggestion, and it would be fairly easy, is that they should implement fractal armor skins. A fractal armor set designed to fit the theme of the weapons and only obtainable at level 51 or higher would be amazing. It would add a prestige armor skin to the game that I think players in the game desperately desire. Having 18 pieces of armor skin to unlock for your wardrobe would also grant significant replayability, assuming they were reasonably difficult to obtain. As far as obtaining them, I recommend that ANET would do something like a mixture of RNG drops from the daily chest and a token system. Heck, you could even utilize the masteries to implement like a crafting Mystic Forge recipe system. Something even cooler. That would be amazing. Giving players a chance to get them as drops and the ability to get them incrementally by saving tokens or materials and crafting would be ideal. I cannot, if anyone at ANET is watching this, I cannot stress enough how much players would want a fractal armor skin set. Do I think ANET will actually be adding them? I honestly doubt it. I mean, at this point, I would guess that there's a 25% or less chance that we see a fractal armor set. But really, the idea is so obvious that there's no reason for them not to do it, so let's hope they do. Beyond rewards, what do I expect the content in Fractals to be itself? I fully expect that they will introduce instanced versions of Living Story Season 1 encounters that are revamped and redesigned to be challenging to 5 players. It's a pretty obvious way to give us back the Season 1 stuff that is gone, that they have promised would be back. Plus, at least the skeleton of that content already exists. The Battle for Lion's Arch, the Return to Glint's Lair, the Scarlet Hologram fight, those are all great candidates for Fractal Shards, and they could easily be rebalanced for 5 players. My guess is at very least we will see 3 new Fractal Shards and 1 new Shard boss, as far as new content to Fractals goes. So that's for Fractals, and we'll move on to something that I don't think many people have mentioned, but I think is a pretty distinct possibility for challenging group content. So what could ANET do for challenging group content that wouldn't require them to develop exclusionary content and leave stuff that everyone could do? Because as some people have suggested, the reason that they don't want to make raids is that raids take a lot of development, time, and effort, and only a small percentage of the community will see them. That's a fair point. So how about taking the story modes that they introduce for the personal story and creating challenge modes that are actually extremely difficult for groups? So some of the Living Story Season 2 challenge modes that came out were actually fairly interesting and well designed, but of course they were tuned so that the average player could still beat them solo, and they were not a challenge really for groups of 5. However, it would not be difficult to tune them so that they were designed to be played by 5 players and were quite challenging. Add in repeatable daily rewards, and suddenly you have challenging instanced content. Why does this make sense? From a developer perspective, they put tons of time into these story instances, and most players play them once. Or the players play them a second time for the achievements in the living story. Some of the bosses and encounters were fairly interesting and fairly well designed. It makes a lot of sense that if you spend months designing these interesting and beautiful instances, to attach some form of replayability to them. Since you're designing the basic solo story encounters, it's very easy to redevelop them into a 5-man challenging version of the same encounter. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to create unrelated new dungeons. It makes total sense that they would multi-purpose these instances that they already have designed. And it would sort of give them a personal story mode and then a challenging group mode, which, in a sense, is how dungeons already are in the existing game. This really isn't that big of a stretch at all, and they would be pretty dumb to leave such obvious content on the table when you also attach meaningful daily rewards, sort of like the existing dungeons. You get meaningful replayability from the content you already have. I sort of see these as replacing the dungeons. I don't, because of this, I don't suspect we'll get actual dungeons, but I think that these will be functionally very similar to dungeons, and hopefully they are. So that is the idea for story challenge mode, challenging content. Alright, so lastly, and this is by far the one that I'm doing the most guessing game on, it's guild missions or guild raids. Why do I think we're going to get something about that's going to be very challenging through the guild mission system? Well, we know we're getting guild halls. Besides just being a place to AFK and a place to have convenience, crafting, and merchant stations, I think we can easily expect, it'd be reasonable to expect that guild halls are going to have some sort of game function. Since they have said basically nothing about guild halls yet, it's hard to speculate really about any of it, besides the fact that we know we're getting them. We also already have guild missions, which are really the only guild-level content in Guild Wars 2. It would stand to reason that whatever guild-level content they are giving us with guild halls would use the existing guild mission system or an updated and revamped version of it. I have no idea if ANET is going to give us 10 to 15 man raids, but if they were, I would expect them to use the guild mission system or the guild hall infrastructure. A lot of people will say, lol, no way we are getting raids. Well, maybe not. But I personally don't think they did that entire raid CDI on the forums for nothing. As the developer Chris Whiteside said within the CDI thread, quote, please keep the ideas and suggestions within the framework of 10 to 15 player raids. Maybe they took the feedback from that thread and scrapped the whole concept of raids. Or maybe they took the feedback and started working on raids in HOT. Who knows? I do, however, suspect the guild halls will do something other than be a place to AFK. And if they did want to do organized, challenging raids, there's no better way to organize it and implement it than through guild halls. Perhaps raids and guild halls are unrelated, and my speculation is way off, but I don't think it's completely crazy to make this connection. It wouldn't be very difficult to add it to the existing guild mission framework we already have, so I think if they were going to do it, they will do it that way, and we can expect to see challenging group content through the guild mission system. So that is basically it, guys. Some of the stuff is more or less confirmed already, and the other stuff is just wild speculation. But if they deliver kind of half of what I've talked about so far in this video, I think we could all be pretty happy with the content in the X-Pack from an endgame PvE perspective. I understand that a lot of you don't want to put any hope into it and just be pleasantly surprised and contain your optimism. I think it's probably a safe bet, but I have unfortunately allowed myself to gain a little bit of hope, and hopefully I'm not disappointed. All right, that's it, guys. Hit me up in the comments if you have any questions or if you have any ideas to share.